This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, Sumit, we have more than 50 participants. I think we should start.
Wonderful. First of all, many thanks for taking time out to everyone, our panelists, as well as the participants for this webinar, which is focused on the new labor codes. A brief introduction about myself. I lead, my name is Sumit Sabharwal and I lead TeamLease HRtech Limited as a CEO. We are about 15 years old organization. And majorly into the payroll compliances, staffing, and with the changing ecosystem around HR and around employees, we've embarked on a journey to take the thought leadership ahead. And this webinar is a part of the first few steps in terms of the rolling out of the new labor codes. I've got with me my co-panelists. Akshay Mehrotra is the co-founder and CEO of EarlySalary. Akshay has a couple of decades of corporate experience, while he was earlier the chief marketing officer of leading brands in India. And now from last 7 to 8 years, Akshay, you've started your venture and EarlySalary, which is a leading provider of loans and also a lot of asset products and other financial products to the employees. I do have with me my colleague Mahesh Kumar, who is the subject matter expert and authority as far as the labor laws is concerned, and he's been the stronghold of thought leadership for the labor laws in the industry for decades. So with this, I'll request Akshay, if you want to speak a few words before we start.
Thank you, Sumit. I think the world is changing, and I think as we look at employees across the industry, there's a lot of change going to happen where people will get empowered better to earn better. Flexibilities are coming in so that work-life balance can be maintained across work culture, companies, categories, and segments. And more importantly, as I think we've been a provider to help people in their financial independence. We notice as incomes are going up across the board, aspirations are going up. And I think the new labor laws will only allow a better culture to get built in across mass population.
Sure. Thanks, Akshay. With this, Mahesh, we can start the discussion, and how we'll plan it is that for first 45 to 50 minutes, we'll have our perspectives on various aspects of the changes that may come into from near future, and then we'll have last 10 to 15 minutes for the question and answers from the participants. And if we are overshooting time, my promise is that we will have another session like this within a couple of weeks, where we will try to address more questions and more aspects about how things are going to unfold when we are going to embark this journey with the new labor codes. So Mahesh, over to you.
Thanks, Sumit. I'll start sharing the screen. Team, hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, Mahesh, it's perfect.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mahesh from TeamLease, SME subject matter expert. And we are going to run through the slides which are related to the core labor codes. And majorly today, we are going to focus on what all the implication which all industries are going to have after the implementation of the labor codes. So majorly, we are also going to emphasize on the code on wages part, code on wages, which has major the implication in terms of the financial thing. So I'll move on to the next slide. So this is how our labor law landscape. So the legacy labor acts, we have 29 legacy labor acts, and which is again repealed since 2016, and we were having so many sections and thing. Like now what happened is these all 29 legacy labor codes have been subsumed under new labor codes, which are 4 codes. Now only one is code on wages, OSH, Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code 2020, Industrial Relation Code 2020, and Code on Social Security. So these 4 codes have been, there's all 29 legacy labor codes, labor acts have been subsumed with the new labor codes. This is the overall landscape of the labor law currently. The status of the code, which I would like to give the bit like the background of this the code. Now when was the code on wages was published, and when was the bill passed? So those information which I have captured here, the bill was passed on 30th July, and further this has taken the president consent on 8th August 2019, and then the draft rules issued. This is the central draft rules have been issued under the code on wages 2019, and there are 4 acts. As I've stated, there are 4 acts have been subsumed under the code on wages. Similarly, occupational safety, health and working condition, and code on industrial relation, and code on social security, which all these 4 codes have been they have introduced in 2020, and there are certain acts, as I have stated, 13 acts under occupational safety and 3 acts under the social industrial relation, and code on social security there are 9. But however, as we all are aware, we are eagerly waiting for these codes to be implemented very shortly. And there is a news also which we have seen in DNA news or somewhere, which is going here and there, that these codes are going to get implemented by 1st July.
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh. And from a CEO's perspective, Akshay, I would like your views that with this kind of a simplification and compliance easiness, how do you think organizations will respond to this? Is it a positive, or it's too much of a change management from something that we have been following from last 50 more than that years?
I think it's like GST, right? When it came on board, we first thought it's going to be more complex, but I think over time we realized the benefits are much larger as an organization. I think today, if I look at one of the most important elements, the 4 codes are the wage code, which actually impacts the employee earning capabilities and how salary and work is defined, or work day is defined. I think these will have a lot of repercussions in our the businesses running their companies in a differential manner. I think we got used to work from home as a culture in services economy, where even post-COVID, many of us still continue to allow people to work from home for extended days. Now that's going to become a part of normal work regime, right? And I think as the acceptance takes place across industry, I think it'll be a large transitional change, where let's say the HR function will have less worry about how are they complying with 26 laws behind manpower management. And now they have to focus more on how each of those codes can improve lives of people in a much better manner.
Sure. Thanks, Akshay. Certainly, this is certainly going to have a positive impact going further for all of us CEOs, and also it's a win-win between the CEOs as well as the employees and the employers. Certainly, thanks, Akshay. Mahesh, I think we can continue.
Thanks, Sumit and Akshay. So labor, this is the rationalization. So why? What is the purpose of introducing labor codes, and what like making ease of compliances where under the existing the labor acts has so many the interpretation in terms of the wage definition, or when it comes to the other interpretations are very, very cumbersome in existing labor law. That's when this to rationalize and to simplify the definition, simplify the many provisions, or to simplify the other related provisions. So that is when the labor codes, our government of India has decided to have a kind of ease of doing business in India. So this is the major the intent of introducing labor codes. So that's what I have updated in this slide. So I'll move on to the next, which I have stated that what all the labor like existing acts have been subsumed under the 4 labor codes. So Code on Social Occupational Health and Safety, this is 13 acts, 13 majorly, which is a factory site, plantation, mines, and the motor transport, BD, cigar. These are all the major acts have been subsumed. There are 13 acts have been subsumed under the occupational health and safety. And Code on Social Security, there are 9 acts, which is again a financial implication. As we stated, there are many financial implications we have in terms of Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provision Act, and Employee State Insurance and Employee Compensation and Employment Exchange. Other one is the maternity and payment of gratuity. These are all 9 acts have been subsumed under the Code on Social Security. So other 3 acts which are under Code on Industrial Relation, which is Trade Unions Act, Industrial Employment, and Industrial Dispute. So now we are going to emphasize on the Code on Wages, which is 4 acts, which is payment of wages, minimum wages, and payment of bonus, equal remuneration has been subsumed under the Code on Wages. So now I'm going to present it on the Code on Wages. As I mentioned, these are all 4 acts have been subsumed. Applicability. This is very important slide to understand the applicability.
Just to come in here, we in the short span of 1 hour, we may not be able to cover all the four codes. We'll try and see that the first one at least we are able to cover in this session, and for the next 3 codes, or if 2 codes are remaining, we'll plan subsequent sessions so that everyone can absorb the details as much as they can. We can absorb it, and as much as perspectives that we can share, because each of them have been in existence from last 70-75 years, and going through that in 1 hour session will be not doing justice to the details and the threadbare implementations that are going to come in. So Mahesh, please.
Yes, Sumit, absolutely. This 4 codes, if we wanted to take a session, definitely it is going to take more than 3 hours. So that's when we are going to focus more on the Code on Wages, which has the major financial implication. So as I have stated here, the applicability part, under minimum wages, there are certain scheduled employments where like industries are applicable. Now, after the code implementation, it's going to be applicable for all establishment, irrespective of the specified establishment, how it was earlier. Similarly, the Payment of Wages Act, like we have a threshold of 24,000 for the applicability of employees as well as the industry in nature, wherein after the implementation of Code on Wages, so Payment of Wages Act is going to be applicable for all employees, workmen, all categories. So Payment of Bonus Act, coming to Payment of Bonus Act. So Payment of Bonus Act is a central act, which is again a central rules, wherein this, like in the Code on Wages, it is they have given the empowerment to the state to have the threshold limit as well as the wage ceiling, whether it has to be 21,000 or it has to be more than 21,000. Similarly, number of employees, they wanted to have 20 or less than 20 to bring more number of employees under the bracket of bonus. So the empowerment has been provided, extended to the each state. But as of now, though there are many states, like as on today, 30 states have been published the draft rules, wherein as of now, they have not stated anything on the threshold limit, and they are going based on the central rules which they have defined. But however, there will be a separate notification which will be published by each state in terms of the threshold as well as the employees applicability. This is related to the Payment of Bonus Act. Coming to Equal Remuneration Act, as of today, like we are like having 2 gender, which is male and female, and now under equal remuneration, the transgender is also has been included, and they should also be equally treated. And coming to again the establishment, it is going to be covered all the establishment for Equal Remuneration Act as well. Right. So this is related to
absolutely, Mahesh, and from a CEO's perspective, when diversity in an organization becomes very, very important, I think this particular step of all inclusiveness gives a lot of strength as far as our policies or internal companies rules regulations can be aligned to these particular acts, and then everyone at large understands the importance of diversity and how diversity can then have a positive momentum coming in the entire business, specifically with the new age industries coming in, with the innovation, with the advent of high speed technology coming in. Diversity becomes so much important, and I think this is an excellent perspective with which this particular section has been introduced. Akshay, your thoughts?
Another point is across the board, all type of industries get covered or work styles get covered. It's in a same company. You could have a manufacturing employee, you could have a services employee. Now it is a common code of wage across both the type of categories. And that also means that quite a similarity in income behavior will start taking place. And its inclusiveness. There is no differentiation of the employee working in a factory or a services floor or a corporate office. I think that's the commonality is coming in. You can have a singular employee policy across the board coming in.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. That makes a lot of ease also of managing the entire HR function and the policies. Thanks, Akshay. Mahesh, please.
Yes. Yeah. As you rightly mentioned, Sumit and Akshay, yeah, there is an ambiguity. Even till today, there is an ambiguity in terms of the applicability. So many of the industries are not having a clarity. Now that is when the code is very clearly stated that it's going to be applicable, and there wouldn't be any ambiguity in near future. So move on to the next is very important, which is related to the wage. As I have mentioned earlier, all four acts are having a common the wage definition. Earlier, the minimum wages was having a different the wage definition, and similarly, payment of wages was having a different the wage definition. Wherein now the wage definition has brought in as a common wage definition for all this. And here is very important to understand here the wage. They have stated in the wage definition as the exclusion, like or your gross salary. Under your gross salary, exclusion portion cannot go more than 50% of your gross remuneration, which means the 50% you should have as a wage, which is a basic, which you need to have 50% of your gross remuneration. That is one of the major change in the wage. That is when there are many the impact in terms of PF, VSIC, gratuity bonus, which I am going to show you in the subsequent slide. So wage definition, which I have brought in here under section 2Y, various parts, where is what is substantive and what is inclusive, which I have stated here. The inclusive part is, as I've stated, basic DA and retaining allowance. These are all going to be a form of part of wages. And excluded portion is, which is the bonus payable in any under law or house accommodation, majorly on the HRA part and house accommodation, and the defray, certain defray special allowance, which is being paid to an employee as a part of the gross salary, can be excluded. So these are all the components that can be excluded, but exclusion portion cannot go beyond 50%. So that is very clearly stated in the wage definition, depicting that the wage has to be there 50%. Sumit, you would like to add something on this piece, or we'll proceed? Sumit or Akshay?
I will request Akshay to share his views on this.
Two elements come in from a people's perspective. The first is the concept of what you call as exit at, let's say, you need to give 3 months of your basic salary. So now the basic has also gone up across the board, right? And what the wage or the basic salary component comes in. The second part is non-inclusive component being capped at 50 will have a direct impact on actual cash to employees coming in, right? Means that either it causes an increase in you need to increase your wages by an X amount to substantiate the same income for the employee or in-hand income. On the other hand, there is going to be a segment of customers where you can now give flexibility coming in on non-inclusive sections in a far more easier manner for them to administer.
Thanks, Akshay.
Absolutely, and also it will give a much more clarity, Akshay, in terms of the pay elements which can be done, because we have all sorts of hundreds and hundreds of pay elements that comprise of the pay basket, and certainly when we are assessing and understanding how much is my actual rupee or cash value in my salary versus the retirals versus other pay elements, this will give a lot of clarity and at least a baseline for everyone that hey, this amount 50% is going to be into the basic and DA, and the rest can be done, and also substantial amount of retirement saving, which is long-term beneficial for any employee, for his security and safety. That again, financial security and safety, that again becomes a very, very important directional element, both from the company perspective and from the employee perspective also. Because if an employee is at a comfort level, then of course, with respect to finances, his his motivation, his engagement, all that goes to a different level altogether. So I think this is again a very positive impact that will have. Of course, we'll require to change our have the changes done in our HCM systems, our payrolling systems. All that is going to happen, but but ultimately is going to be a big win for employees as well as for us employers.
I think for employers, another important point, standardization will take place across the industry. So today, if I look at many companies have very creative salary payout structures. I think some of them do benefit in tax savings. Some of them get more complex for the employee to understand and take max benefit. But I think these will result in much more standardized approaches to what is payout structure. It also will reduce the effort while payroll integrators work with them companies. So I think both ways it's going to help out.
Sure, Akshay, certainly. Right. Mahesh, I think we can continue. Yeah.
Yes. Coming to the sample salary structure, I have illustrated a sample salary structure which will be easy to understand everyone. So I have considered the table 1 as the existing, probably in case if you have an existing salary structure as a basic 5,000 and DA 2,000, and the allowances also I have taken it from the excluded portion which has been defined in the wage definition. HRA, which is 3,000 conveyance and washing allowance, which is amounting to 16,000 as a gross. Wherein after the implementation of code, it should be like it was not working out to 50% of your wage, which is only 7,000 out of 16,000. Wherein, so we need to restructure our salary and we need to make it as 8,000 as a basic and DA. So that is what is the second table, which is very clearly clarifying, and this is how the salary structure restructuring has to be happened. And the exclusion portion also shall go 8,000, and the wage also will go to 8,000. So this is the sample salary structure which I have illustrated here. So move on to the next slide, which is on impact on the wages. What all the major impacts which I have stated earlier? The major impact would be on the employers PF, like employees provident fund, like where employers liability will go up, where many companies are contributing on the actual basic. Probably in case if you take an example of if an employee gross salary is 1 lakh, where the basic is 30% of 1 lakh, then you will be contributing on 30,000. Wherein after implementation of the code, it's going to be 50,000. We have to contribute on 50,000. At the same time, there is the net take home will reduce from the employee is front, but however, this is contributing to the social security, wherein employer contribution towards the 12%, which is the difference amount of 20,000, he has to contribute the 12%. So that is when the contribution will go up in terms of the PF. Similarly, gratuity also being paid on the basic. Since the quantum has been increased, gratuity quantum will also go up, bonus quantum will also go up. However, we have to also wait. We have to wait for a notification which will be published by the PF department in terms of the ceiling. As of now, the Act did not specify anything about the ceiling, which currently the 15,000. So whether to continue to go with that, or the PF department is going to notify with a separate notification whether the ceiling will be lifted. So this we have to await and see. So that is when is the clarity is missing. Otherwise, the quantum is going to increase since the wage is going to be 50%. Similarly, ESIC. As on today, like the existing Act or the ESIC, we have a threshold limit of 21,000 and below, where ESIC coverable employees, where we have to cover them and contribute, and we are contributing on the gross salary. We are taking the quantum of gross salary. Wherein here in the code it is stated that we have to contribute on the wage. So ESIC quantum may come down since the wage is going to be 50% of your gross remuneration. Wherein at the same time, again from the ESIC department, the circular has to come and they are going to notify whether the ceiling is going to be increased or we have to restrict the ceiling amount to 21,000 as a wage. So this clarification is still awaited. So remaining thing which I have stated, gratuity and the bonus eligibility and the quantum will go up. And another one is the related to the maternity benefit. Again, the maternity benefit quantum will come down since the maternity benefit has to be paid. Currently, we are paying on the gross quantum, wherein after code implementation, it has to be paid on the 50% of the wage. Again, the maternity benefit quantum shall also reduces. So again, coming to the another point, which is related to the employee compensation. So the ceiling is, as of now, it is 15,000. So now that 15,000, the ceiling part has been removed. So now it has to be paid. The employee compensation has to be paid on the total wage, which is a 50%. So the employee compensation quantum will also go. So these are all the major impact in terms of the finance.
So Mahesh, if I look at the majority summary, it's actually trying to build a larger social security system for the employee. Most of the time, his forced saving is coming in gratuity, in PF contribution, and other benefits, which are the largest game changer, right? And typically, if I look at an employee who typically earned, let's say, 30,000 rupees, today, in most cases, the employer would have pushed in, let's say, 1,200 rupees towards his PF contribution or gratuity contribution, another 800. That'll get almost doubled as a figure.
I think Mahesh,
He's just still connecting back.
Sorry, there was some technical glitch, I believe.
no problem.
I don't know where I have stopped.
So Mahesh, because Akshay has some thoughts around this from the CEO's perspective. So he had some one small calculation clarification on this, Akshay.
So I think one of the clear components was, I said, Mahesh, that this causes more social security and forced saving for employees to come in. And if I look at that matter, if the same 30% example, if basic earlier was 30 and now jumps to 50, from like an average 1,200 rupees and an 800 rupee contribution towards PF and gratuity, that number almost doubles at an employee level. So that's one of the clear indicators coming through the new code.
Yes, Akshay, you're absolutely right on this. So this is going to be a major impact for us.
Yeah, I think, but from a CEO perspective, we're coming from today the insight that I need to get my employees to remain longer with me. While it's a short-term impact on the P&L which comes, but in the long run, you're actually asking employees to stay on in a larger window, because only people who work for, let's say, 5 years plus have the gratuity benefit kicking in. So today, most of the time, as companies get built, it's the long-term retention which gets more and more beneficial for employees, and I think that's getting a large impact will come in from there.
Absolutely, and also, you know, what Akshay is happening is that, you know, our overall, you know, philosophy, you know, that's been coming through is that, you know, sabka saath sabka vikas, you know, how the long term we are taking everyone along with us from the grassroots level employee till the very top, and ensuring that, you know, we've got the welfare is delivered till the last mile on a long term basis is something that, and to the remotest of the areas, because our country, you know, is like very, very diverse, and, you know, workforce is there in every nook and corner of the country. So it actually helps on a long term basis to all the employees, you know, which these acts tries to cover the majority of that. And I think sabka saath sabka vikas is something which is you know, getting implemented whenever we roll these out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Sumit and Akshay. In addition to the implication which we have seen, I would like to highlight on the payment of wages. Under the payment of wages, the existing versus the code on under the code on wages, what all the changes are.
Mahesh, we are not able to see the screen.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hope my screen is visible now.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So payment of wages, these are all the major changes which are going to take place. One is, as I mentioned, the threshold limit has been removed, which is not going to be applicable. And coming to the section 17, subsection 1 clarifies on the wage, when to pay the salary. Like in case if it is a daily, people we are engaging on daily basis, which has to be paid on the end of the day, and weekly last working of the week, and fortnightly within 2 days after the end of the period, and monthly. Here is the major change which we have to make a note of it. Earlier, the provision was anything which is less than 1,000, we have to make the payment with on or before 7th of the succeeding month. Now, anything which is beyond 1,000, it was 10th. Now that 10th has been removed, and they made it 7th for irrespective of whatever the number, the payment has to be made within 7th day of the subsequent month. So this is one more the major change. And another important change which is related to the settlement or separation. In case of any separation or resignation from an employee, after his last working day, within 2 working days, we have to settle the FNF, which is full and final settlement, has to be happened within 2 working days. This is one more the major impact, or one more the major change for the employer, where employer has to adopt to this new change. As of now, like employer, he used to make the like F&F release. They used to release it after the completion of the payroll or in the subsequent month, but that is not going to be the condition going forward. Here, they have to settle the full and final within 2 working days. But when it comes to the gratuity, there's no change, which has to be paid within 30 working days of his last working. Can I move on to the next slide? Or
So
Mahesh, really interesting actually. As a business, for us, this was a large issue because many employers had very differentiated dates of salary payments. In fact, we then come up with some funny rules that depending on average 3 months salary credit, we'll choose a mean date and give you a repayment date accordingly. Now, I think as a salary advance company, it makes our life far more easier. So within the first 7 days, people are going to get paid. So it makes repayment systems much more easier to administer. Similarly, one of the biggest complications when we run a product known as earn wage access, where an employee can discount his salary and take it any day home. We used to always find it difficult in full and final period. One, with the clear out definition of full and final being paid out in 2 days, what it means is that any dues on the salary have to be imposed immediately on employee exit. It cannot be linked to a payroll later processing date. The second part is now, which means that the entire systems of processing this payout will have to also be built in real time, which allows a product like us to work across categories. We found it very difficult to run this for.
Absolutely, Akshay. And from the HRtech perspective, when we are helping our clients in automating the HR systems, there is a very important, while when an employee onboards and when an employee exits, that's the entire employee journey within the organization. So most of the organizations, when we see is that there is while onboarding is still, companies are working on the employee exit part of it, is still there is a lot of improvements that can be done. And when a 48 hours timeline is there for a FNF settlement, then certainly all that planning, all those exit formalities, etc., there has to be some kind of an HRMS system or HRtech HCM system which handholds and gives a clear visibility to the employee that where he is right now. Does he have to do some administrative related work, or some assets have to be submitted? Many cases employees are working on site, off site, so all those nitty-gritties will give a very clear visibility to an employee. And especially in this era where we are seeing a lot of involuntary separations in certain sectors, this will give a lot of comfort level to the employees also, that hey, the company which they are moving on will not have their funds blocked for more than 48 hours. So that's an excellent initiative and a section that has been put here in this. And again, 7 days is really pulling it at least 3 days ahead. So again, very positive move from the employee perspective on this.
So I'll move on to the next slide, which is again related to the payment of wages, certain deductions and recovery and damages, unpaid accumulation. These four things which I am going to clarify here. The deduction part, there wouldn't be any change, as even today it is 50%. It should be exceed more than 50% of the gross salary. The deduction should not be. It should be less than 50%. And recovery of advance at the same time, recovery in case of any advance which has been paid by an employer, the 50%. It shouldn't be more than 50% of the wage. So the recovery part, which they have defined here, and coming to the deduction or damages. Okay, that is very important. That is very explicitly they have stated.
Again, screen share.
Okay. So my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yes, as I mentioned, this deduction and damages part. So they have explicitly stated that we have to give an opportunity to employee. We need to hear it out from him, and based on that, the deduction has to go. Any deduction which is related to damage or loss. And coming to the unpaid accumulation as of now from the labor welfare perspective, it is like each state has its own, like for Karnataka it is 3 years, and if it is coming to other states which has 2 years. So now the unpaid accumulation cannot be held by an employer for beyond 6 months. So he has to deposit back to the department, which is the labor department, the commissioner, within 15 days from the date of that 6 months closure. So it has to be paid through DD. And the labor department is going to hold for 7 years that amount. They are going to hold it, and they're going to publish it in newspaper, where employee who has not received the amount, who can take it from the labor department. So that is the one major change they have made it, where the employer was holding it for 3 years. Now that is not the scenario. Now we have to go and deposit within 6 months. So coming to the bonus part. Hello, am I audible, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So coming to the bonus part, so the applicability part, as I have stated, so the empowerment has been extended to the state, and state is going to come up, either they need to have 20 or more, or they can even bring it down to less than 20. Similarly, wage ceiling is also can go up, or otherwise it cannot reduced. Otherwise, the central rule says it is 21,000 as the wage ceiling. So they have to either, like each state either can go up or they can go with the 21,000. That is one thing which they have given the empowerment to the state. And coming to the mode of payment, which they have stated as giving by bank credit, the bonus has to be paid on the bank credit. Disqualification of bonus. This is one more, the new clause which has been introduced under Code on Wages, section 29D depicts that conviction for sexual harassment. Any conviction for sexual harassment, the bonus payable can be deprived to the employee. This is a new which they have introduced for the conviction for sexual harassment. Coming to equal remuneration, which is, as I have stated, that so the transgender has also been included in respect of male and female, so the transgender has also been included, and there shouldn't be no discrimination in ground of gender. So everyone has to be equally paid for their equal the designation. So even transgender also has to be treated in a similar way. Otherwise, they have stated few things in OSH code. The transgender has to be provided with the separate latrines, separate restrooms, and the discrimination, they shouldn't be discriminated. So these all are things which they have stated in the OSH code. Sumit, anything you would like to add, Sumit and Akshay, here in these 2 slides?
I think I have a lot of things to add. However, taking the taking a note of the time, I think if we won't be able to complete this code also. So because we've got about 18 minutes to go. So I think Akshay, if you have anything, we can
Let's go on. We'll take up some questions.
I'm sorry to pause you, Sumit and Akshay. See, I have this slide which is related to code on wages. So I'll clarify on this particular slide so that we'll be completing the code on wages. Further, we can take the question and answer session.
Okay, fair enough.
So specific to in the code on wages, though the Contract Labor Act is subsumed under the Social Security, wherein in the code on wages they have specifically stated certain the provisions. One is related to they have classified who's interstate migrant and who is the contractual employee. And in addition to that, the definition of the contractor, it is at par with the existing act. And the payment to the contractor, which is another important thing for the way principal employer has to ensure to make the payment before contractor makes the payment to the contractual employee. So which they have given very clear clarity, and also principal employer has to make the payment in advance to the contractor to make the payment. The same time, bonus, in case the bonus has been deprived by the contractor to the contractual employees, the principal employer has to pay the minimum bonus, which these four important clause has been brought in, laid down under the code on wages. Over to you, Sumit and Akshay, anything you would like to add, or I'll just move on to the previous slide in case our the forum is having any questions, we can
I think the team had one question, Mahesh, that you should answer. What's the difference between wage and salary and how the definition has changed now?
It is there in the chat box.
Yeah, it's right there. The first question is there.
The difference between salary and wage. Yeah. So the salary wage, if you refer the any of the code or any of the act, it clarifies on the wage only. They never say this is as a salary, wherein now how we have defined is salary being paid like wages, any wage which is being paid as a daily or it is paid as a fortnightly, that used to be considered as a wage, wherein now the terminology, since this is being paid on monthly basis, monthly basis, that is being called as a salary, but it is not as good as wage. Salary and wage, there is no much differentiate, wherein we need to understand the salary being paid. Okay, out of in the salary, what all the components are there, which is being defined as a basic, which has been defined as a HRA, which has been defined as a conveyance. So this is the overall quantum has been called as a salary. So I'm not able to see any other questions in the chat box. If there are any other questions, we
Yes,
can.
you can. What you can do is you can stop the sharing. Maybe then you can see.
Okay.
Another question I can see from Abhimanyu Kumar is, will the state-wise minimum wages will be will differ?
Differs. I think differs. Yeah. He says state-wise minimum wages. Yes, there will be a difference in the state-wise minimum wages.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question is the settlement with workers has many wage components, which are industry, company, role specific, including various incentives. Many of them are variable in nature and may not be paid to all and every month. Since settlement is covered under exclusion clause in item number G and later has to be paid up to 50%. My question is whether the logic guidelines laid down in Supreme Court judgment dated 28th February 2019, can we exclude such incentives for the purpose of PF contribution under new wage code definition? This is more on PF related. And also see the PF related is any components which are paid variable in nature, and there is a substantial proof or substantial reason has been stated. Yes, such component can be excluded from the definition of PF, which is section 2B, where basic wages definition is very clearly stated. That can be excluded if you have a exact like a reason for it, why you have named as such allowances. Please explain what is deemed wage, which I have already clarified. What is the time limit to pay monthly bill of contractor? The monthly bill contractor, they have not stated. So now again, as I mentioned that you have to, like principal employer has to make the payment in advance, whatever the payment has to be paid to the contractual employees. Post that the bill has to be paid accordingly.
No, so does
No
that mean, Mahesh, I think we should try to give some clarity because many companies have a lot of off-role employees and their contractors involved. Uh, the act clearly says that no matter whose payroll you're on, you need to receive money by the 7th of the month, which means that in most cases, contractual will have to be paid in advance because he'll not be able to provide the 1 month working capital finance for himself.
Yes.
So that's going to be a huge change in most cases today. Let's say if you have a security guard company and you will end up, he will raise a bill in the first week, finance will take a week to clear it. He will receive the money and after that he'll process his payroll. Typically employee payout cycles are 15 to 20th of the month. Right. So that becomes a gap. Now everyone has to be paid by the 7th, which means if your cutoff date is 31st, you need to process your payment to him and he needs to process his payment to the final employee within the 7-day window.
Yes, yes.
Right.
See, as you rightly mentioned, there would be a complication in terms of processing salary, and even the principal employer may not be aware that how much amount has to be paid. So maybe he has to take the approximate amount, how much he has paid in the previous month, how many as such employees. Maybe they need to have a kind of those arrangements to mitigate this issue.
Yeah, and certainly we know, Akshay, company like us, which are into processing, salary processing, and into the, the compliances, will have, based on the specific cases, have our own legal opinion which align to the codes, and then we can help those organizations on specific case-to-case basis. Certainly. I think Mahesh, we have got a lot of, I think from
15, a lot of questions. Do company needs
questions?
To do a company needs to apply again under new codes for several registration and certification. Registration and certification, they have combined it specifically for factories, CLRA, they have made it as a consolidated registration. So I think we may have to again revisit on the registration part, and the existing registrations may substitute it with the common registration. Whether 50% of the wage will be include the total CTC. No, it does not. The 50% of the wage is going to be a gross remuneration. So performance-based incentives.
Mahesh, you can read the questions aloud because then everyone can.
Yes. Performance-based incentives covered under inclusive or exclusion. Performance-based incentives, any allowances which is paid and there is a substantial proof for that, will be considered as excluded from the wage definition. Any minimum limit apart from the wage, that is HRA, etc., to be given. HRA part, they have not stated any minimum. The exclusion portion can go up to 50% of your gross remuneration. How new wage code benefits to employee and company? In many angles, maybe that question we can take it later because there are many things to say. When will all 4 codes apply? This is again a very typical question. Yes, there is a news which was going on that this is going to get implemented by 1st July, but as of now, we have not got any.
And 1st July is tomorrow. So I think
tomorrow.
there's, So, in all likelihood, what we can say is on this question is that, companies like us, like, Akshay's company, we are very much prepared because somewhere or the other, we've been, thought leaders in terms of, taking the employee voice to the planning tables, and also, helping organizations in aligning their systems and their processes and their policies to the draft rules that have been been made available in public domain. So whether it as per some of the news items, whether these codes may be implemented tomorrow or maybe a week or 2 months or a few months down the line, but I think in the interest of employees and to give us a glide path, I think all organizations should start at least getting onto the drawing board, planning for it, maybe policy wise, then process wise, and ultimately the technology wise, so that once these codes are implemented, it's a smooth transition that happens. So that's at this point in time, that's what we can we can say. on the implementation part.
So Sumit,
right.
as a tech entrepreneur, I would say that it's very important that organizations need to implement technology to enable the transition to the new code. Right? And the biggest element is you need to start capturing in a way attendance daily, and it has to go marry back into your payroll processing system. That's going to be the biggest change happening here. There is no way you can process, if let's say you have 5,000 employees, now the entire cycle and make all credits and systems like full and final running in real time. So the effort, it's not whenever this comes into place. The first question is your HR systems tech enabled enough to run business in that manner? Even if it's a 20-member company or a 1,000-member company, the HR systems for every organization will become pretty much similar to facilitate some of these transactions in this manner for the employee. So that's the first big adaptation you need to do. Whenever the new code comes, that's fine, right? But you cannot change your tech platform overnight. It takes months to adopt to a new tech platform, and you'll be struggling whenever you have to move to the new regime, right? In fact, if you look at when the regime came out for personal tax exemptions, right, you can go in for the new regime or the old slab-based regime. And today, even if the employee wants, most companies could not move the employee to that slab. He said, आप filing के time पे कर लीजिएगा, payout structure ऐसे ही रहेगा उसका. And those are because unless your tech systems run more seamlessly, you can't facilitate these things. And you just start now. Whenever it gets implemented is fine, but remember it's at least a 120-day sprint before you can move to a new tech platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean that you have hit the nail on his head, Akshay. While, on one side, the rules are changing, on second side, the time for payout. For example, earlier it was, the companies had to leeway till 10th to pay the salaries. Now they have now they will have a leeway only till 7th. So 3 days gets squeezed there. Then for full and final, again, only 48 hours are given. And of course, capturing attendance, geotagging, various ways of, very, very diversified workforce. I mean, some are working from home, working from sites, working from field. How do you, get all those inputs in and are able to comply to the new laws? That really requires a very evolved technology, and certainly, organizations like us have already upgraded our tech platforms to align to the new labor code, whether it's attendance or payroll or compliances. So, and we'll be more than happy to take the other organizations through this journey that we have embarked as our respective organizations. Certainly. Maybe Mahesh, I think we have got just 5 minutes. We can have a few more questions.
Yeah, there are questions. One is related to for the bonus when minimum wages is 11,000 and basic DA is 20,000. The bonus now existing bonus, the bonus has to be paid either 7,000 or minimum wages, whichever is higher. In this case, minimum wages is 11,000, then 11,000 has to be paid as a bonus. And coming to the another question, any clarity given on gratuity eligibility? Gratuity eligibility is 10 or more employees, and that is going to go, and there's no change in that. Can basic be more than 50% of gross salary? Yes, it can go more than 50% in case if your exclusion portion is less than the 50%. In case if your exclusion portion is only 30% of gross remuneration, then 70% is going to be your basic or wages. What is meant by salary cap is to be notified, mentioned in your slide, which is related to the PF ceiling and also ESIC, which has to be notified by the respective ESIC and PF department. And minimum wages is considered on basic. Just a minute. Minimum wages is considered as on basic or gross. Here again, it's not about the minimum wages. We need not to correlate with the minimum wages, as all these days we used to have a definition, but now it's going to be a common definition. So the wage what they have stated as 50% is going to be the basic. It's not going to be a kind of minimum wages. Can you explain about the floor wages? Floor wages, what they have stated is any floor wages which is central government is going to define. So any state which is going to notify about the minimum wages, it shouldn't be less than the floor wage has been defined by the central. Is there any impact on the maternity payout once the code wage which is implemented? Yes, there will be a quantum may come down maternity benefit as it has to be paid on the wage as stated in the code. Please confirm limit of wage for applicable code of wage 2000. If an employee getting 50K wages, then it will be applicable or not. No, it is not about, there's no any threshold pertaining to the wage, like to consider. Code on wages is going to be, all 4 codes are going to be applicable for all category of employees and all category of salaries. Organizations having arrangements of pay and collect for vendors, how will it impact for the payment to vendor staff? Having arrangement to pay and collect. So there won't be any concern in case if organization is paying upfrontly to the vendors. So there may not be any concern. Maybe that can be recovered from the bill submission by the contractor. Suggest the compensation components which will control the direct cash flow.
So I think we've got, we've got close to about 50 odd questions, Mahesh, and I think Akshay, that this is a topic of of the hour, because we've got a few hours only left now for July 1st, and if we were to go by the media reports, midnight today the new labor codes will be on. So but we never know till we get an official notification from the government that when it will be started. We've just been able to cover the first code, and also the lot of questions which are still to be answered. What I'll request Rishi is that Rishi Badwani is that please have the list of these questions with us, and we will and we will try and we'll try and answers to have answers and response to all the participants who've taken out time for this brief session. This is only the first part of first session, and we started with it, and we'll cover all the four codes in detail in the subsequent weeks. With this, I would like to thank Akshay, for taking out his time from his busy schedule and being with us to share his thoughts, his views on this and on the labor codes.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Mahesh, for a very insightful session. Thank you.
Thanks, Akshay.
Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Akshay. Thank you, Rishi, and the organizers. Thanks, participants, above all, for this highly interactive and great webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sumit.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.